It's Friday, January 14th, 2021 at 9:43 a.m. here locally in downtown Seattle. This is the DiaryCast's DiaryCast number 22, entitled Mind Games. You don't really notice the transition until you reach the destination. Now that you've arrived, take a look back at the road you've just traveled. Can you now see how much you've experienced? That was the theme of this week. It was a message that was just there as they are when I was awaking on the 7th of January. And of course, I ran over to my DiaryCast notes page and typed it out really quickly to make sure that I remembered it. And in fact, I found that this message on the morning of the beginning of this DiaryCast period actually was a direct reflection of what occurred during the week. So here's an overview of what occurred. I re-listened to an audio called Session 0 that I recorded originally on March the 8th of 2021 while in a suburb of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Surprisingly, on the heels of this listen, a calendar pop-up showed that reminded me to look into AR, or augmented reality. That took me back to a series that happened in June of last year. From June the 6th of 2021, for the next 11 days, every single day was filled with my being a translator, literally just taking notes as if in dictation from somewhere that I couldn't really identify. I experienced a maelstrom of activity. Those two things and all that followed brought me to the following. I had an idea back in, I would say it was around 2012 when it first came to me, but because I didn't have any genuine experience in these otherworldly kinds of things, I was getting all kinds of synchronicities and curious coincidences that led me to begin asking a lot of questions about what is possible? What is reality? How far can we take it? And how malleable is it truly? So when I began to have experiences for the next 2 to 3 years, in approximately 2015, I approached two of my friends about the possibility of us coordinating our efforts to create some kind of device or potentially an app that would connect people in the same way that telepathy does, either to enhance the signal or almost as like a notification, like, I'm on the line, you want to pick up kind of thing, or to arrange a location that we both sort of build in our own mind's eye where we can meet, that sort of stuff, to eventually utilizing it for the benefit of those who don't have those skills at all yet, or they're not honed, but they're open to the possibility. I didn't really know if it was going to be possible because I didn't want it to include the development of hardware, external devices other than, let's say, an app that could initiate the signal or activate the signal, because I don't think it's necessary. I already have some abilities to reach others telepathically, or for them to reach me, which is actually more often than my reaching them. I don't have any evidence that I've ever reached anyone other than my mother-in-law, who was in a coma once, years and years and years ago, and no one thought she was coming out of it, including the doctors. So I sat down in a meditation and I tried to reach out to her, just to talk to her. I felt it was possible. I didn't exactly know how to reach her or to confirm it, but I thought, what do I have to lose? So I literally sat there and spoke to her in my mind's eye, as we do, in real words that were English. And then a few weeks later, when she came out of coma and was responding to say thank you to some flowers I sent her, she doesn't speak English. She lives in Alexandria, Egypt. So When she reached out, she did it through her son, my brother-in-law, and he helped me to understand through her excitement that she heard me. That was her message to me. Thank you for the flowers, and I heard you. And I instantly went back to that moment and thought, oh my God, she's saying she heard me back when I was meditating. So I asked my brother-in-law, could you confirm with her that she's talking about blah, blah, blah? And he goes, hang on. And he comes back and said, she said yes. And then she came forward and told me 3 things I said, keeping in mind that not only was she in a coma, but she doesn't speak English. She speaks Arabic and French, but not English, yet she heard me. So here I am in 2015 with this idea for what I thought might be an app, but not really knowing how to leap over that hurdle of not having to have exterior hardware. I knew it had to be connected in some way to our senses, but not necessarily at our perceivable physical level as we assume that they are limited to at present, but more of an energetic level based on frequency as the common denominator, as the relational element. So fast forwarding to present, here I am today, having experienced 11 days of information I had no idea what to do with, spending as many as 6 to 8 hours each of those days in a kind of a haze of need to capture everything that was coming to me. And then I would research things I didn't know anything about that had come to me to see if they even were something real. And if they were, what I could learn about them, because I didn't know anything other than, this sparse array of data that just kept flowing my way for 11 days. And on the 12th day, it stopped. And I was grateful because I knew that even one day's worth of information, one idea or sentence within one day could be huge. So I wanted to make sure that I had time to process everything that happened. Yet on day 12, I was exhausted. And I pushed it forward a month. I thought, let me have a month to process because I need to understand what it is that I have just discovered. And I see that it kind of connects. The beginning of each day kind of picked up where the day before had left off. So there was this continual chain or flow of data that was all related in some way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. So when the 1 month calendar came up, I ignored it and just set it to come up every month. And I've ignored it ever since because it's too much and I just wasn't ready. But the funny thing is, on the heels of my listening to session 0, it seemed perfectly aligned that this other research had popped up about augmented reality back from June of last year. So without going into all of the research, I focused only on that related to augmented reality. And why I called it mind games was this. We are creators. In 2015, when I presented this idea to my friends, I was aware that I personally, at that moment in time, wasn't going to be able to pull this whole thing together. One of my friends was a guy named Michael Monk. I'm going to include here a clip from an interview Michael Monk did in 2017. It is a collection of excerpts from an interview that was over 1 hour in length. The reason I'm sharing it is not for you to look at this gentleman and believe everything he's saying. To be honest, if I would have heard Michael talking about those things before I had known Michael, I don't even know if I would understand what he's saying. But knowing him since 2012, for almost a decade now, and having my own series of personal experiences that have led me to a better understanding of what he's actually talking about here, I'm sharing it not so that you believe him or feel that I'm trying to push anything on you, because it is unusual. but to show you that this is the type of mind that it takes to believe something like the metaverse without hardware is possible, because he's already doing it. And I don't say this lightly. Anyone can say anything, and you can choose whether you believe them or not if you don't have any firsthand experience or you've never seen what they said happen as they said it happened. But I've had my own experiences with Michael. Experiences where he actually sent bits of his energy in and around the environment where I was. And we did experiments together. And he proved to me not only that he could show himself in orb form in the room where I was, but that he could also connect to me. And once he did, share a feeling. And that feeling was kind of that elevator dropping feeling that you get when your stomach drops, or when you're on a plane and you hit some turbulence, that kind of feeling. He was able to actually interact with my energy in such a way that I felt those things milliseconds before he would say something like, "Now what do you feel?" Or, "Can you feel that? Tell me about it. Where is it? What does it feel like?" Because he was trying to confirm what he was doing. So I know that Michael's the real thing. And if there's a Michael that exists in this world, there are others. And they are all probably ostracized in much the same way that Michael has been. So again, I repeat, I'm not sharing this clip to suggest you believe what he's saying. I'm sharing this clip to show you the type of mind that it takes to be able to process the idea that I had for a way to connect, potentially using an app in a way that now Mark Zuckerberg is proposing with Metaverse. And not only did Michael say, "Yeah, of course it's possible," he basically told me, "It's possible and you don't need a device." Why do you need a device? I see it more as a placebo, that the device itself isn't what was key, but it was to introduce the concept so that people could begin to believe in the possibility, in the same way that the metaverse is being advertised now, even though it may take several years to actually implement. My idea was this, even using it as a placebo, it was to create a connection that was based upon the replacement or the swapping out at the cellular level. If you are looking at a DNA string, for example, what's called a cellular indicator. And there has to be one somewhere for frequency. If and when we identify where that cellular indicator is on the equivalent of a DNA molecule, then you literally can begin to swap out or recalibrate or temporarily replace that data, that signal. And by doing that, you're able to achieve what Zuckerberg's doing with hardware without the need for anything. It's being done at the molecular cellular level. That's why I believe that if you use something like an app and you utilize it to match frequency, that what you're doing is you're matching frequency at your end. It's measuring your current frequency and helping you to catalog and identify your frequency so that you can change it. So if you're feeling one feeling and you change your feeling to try and change your frequency, it will tell you which direction you're going and what frequency you're at, so that you can then determine for yourself how you navigate that and reach the potential frequency that the other that you're trying to connect with has. And once you do that, the equivalent of a signal or a charge or a burst or an orb or something would then interact with your physicality at a DNA level, and it would create the equivalent of that swap, of that cellular indicator being changed so that your two frequencies match. And once they match, what you do with it after that is up to you. The two of you can meet in a virtually created space in your mind's eye that both of you participate in the development of. You can have conversations, coffee, look at the movie Inception and see what they did in dream state. It would be the equivalent of that, but on a spiritual soul connection level, that kind of thing. So take a listen to what Michael says, and I hope that you appreciate the open intellect of this individual.
The biggest thing to understand is that here on Earth in the physical body, we're in finite reality. So there's a linear timeline, there's a preset way of how everything operates here, and that's a pre-designed pattern that's governed by the electrical system of the body. Like we talked about on the last show, when you incarnate into a body, you take your free-flowing, multidimensional consciousness and you fuse it to the electrical system, the nervous system of the body, which has a preset pattern, which pretty much forces your consciousness to experience this linear, preset, or finite reality. Once you begin to experience beyond that, you're no longer governed by the electrical system of the body entirely. There's different ranges of it, but you start to enter into infinite reality or infinite reality, and that infinite reality is every possibility and every probability all happening simultaneously. So there's no such thing as not real when you're in infinite reality, and there's really no way to define that. So we've been so used to having a finite system of reality that as we open up to spirit, as we open up to this stuff, we pretty much expect that there's going to be a preset way that spirit or that soul operates, and there really isn't. It's infinite. Like every possibility, every probability, all happening simultaneously. Anything that you can imagine is real on some level, even if you just created it on the spot with your imagination.
I guess my question to you is, how do you unplug from that matrix if everyone individual has their own definition of the defined reality, the finite reality? How do you unplug from that in a healthy way where you could have a more of an infinite definition of reality?
Mm-hmm. It's slowly, one step at a time, and just having experience after experience and lining up the data or getting to hear from people that already have can put you on a path of a massive shortcut. And that's a great way that I can aid people in that way, because I've literally been through hell, been through all sorts of stuff, piecing this together, figuring it out, and it's not easy. It's not, we're used to being finite creatures, and as you open up to this, it's very hard to keep your to keep at least what people would call sanity. I mean, sanity to me now means your ability to communicate or relate to people that are not having the same experience as you. If you can maintain that ability to communicate and relate, then you're sane, because you got to change your definitions of what sanity is once you're opened up in this way, and that to me is what it is. Another important thing to understand is we are creators, and we're capable of creating with thought, with clairvoyance, which is the ability to see in spirit, to actually see energy. You can look at a person while they're having a thought, and energy accumulates like right there in their head, and it has a color, a frequency, a vibration, and then when they release that thought, it drifts out and it coagulates and forms into an orb of energy. It takes on form. So thoughts have form, and you could literally say that every thought you have ends up becoming a spirit. It individualizes into an orb, into a round shape. And here in the physical reality, it's not very real, compared to us. It is real. There's no such thing as not real, but the density of energy behind a thought form from the human body is not nearly as solid or physical as real as this physical earth is. It's in a lighter energy. So it depends on the standpoint that you're in as to how you're going to experience. So, and I think this is how a lot got trickled down through the years and through religions, was people having these types of experiences without the full metaphysical understanding. And so they create dogma, they create, false, or not false, because, it's real,
It's real,
just inaccurate interpretations that paint a picture of powerlessness for humanity. So the thing to do is to open your heart wide, realize that it's an extension of yourself, and apply love. Love, in a very, very basic sense, is the energy behind gravity. It's the very basic desire of one particle of consciousness to be close to other particles of consciousness. It creates a biomagnetic energy, an inward force. So you recognize this negative energy, this negative entity, this demon, you open up your heart, you love it, accept it as a part of the self, and it rushes right into you and disperses through your being and just becomes a part of the whole. Biggest part of our growth is to be here in the body, to get more consciousness into the body, so much so that we begin to experience soul expansion. We begin to fill up beyond the nervous system, expand beyond the soul, and start to unify with the molecular structure of the body and the molecular structure of the elemental world around us. I think that is our biggest growth. That's the biggest way that we can grow, and that the out-of-body stuff is mostly for rest and recreation. If you start getting hung up on thinking that you're going to receive wisdom when you're out of your body, then you're in for a very long ride.
The purpose of this week's DiaryCast is to offer the suggestion that you look into the idea of us playing mind games with ourselves. If you have an idea, a thought, throw it out there to the universe, release it out into what people refer to as the collective. And the reason I say that is because that's what I did in 2015. I felt at that time that this idea was ripe for development, but that I knew I couldn't do it alone or with the resources that I had available to me. But I didn't want humanity to lose the opportunity for this. So again, as I did back with my mother-in-law, when I said, well, why not? I mean, she's in a coma. What do I have to lose if I try to talk to her and try and reach her? That's how I felt in 2015. I thought, what do I have to lose by throwing this idea out there and just letting it evolve? One girl releasing one idea out into the metaverse and just seeing what happened. That's what I feel is going on right now. And I'm not the only one. We all can do this and live in the world we want. So if you're looking for change, individual change, familial change, change at your work, change in your community, global change, cosmic change, spiritual change, health change, it doesn't matter what you want. If you want it, feel that it's right, and are willing to let go of any egoic attachment you have to the outcome, and that you don't have to be the one who developed and gets credit for it, then do the same. If we all did that, we would be able to create a world that was of our entire imagination. And for this week, I will leave it there.